Okay, so here is our chart, 21st of February, 4:36 a.m., tropical whole signs, Sydney, Australia. When we have a look here, here is our Saturn and Neptune conjunction, and it's perfected at 0 degrees of Aries, 0 degrees, 45 minutes. 0 degrees, 45 minutes. Okay, now before we start, I would just like to put a little bit of context around this for you that might make it easier or closer to you. I have a friend who writes fiction, and I asked her, tell me how you approach writing a story. And she said, well, you need a character and you need a plot. Your story can either be plot driven or it can be character driven. Of course, they both meet throughout this story. So if you have a plot and a character and you start writing, regardless of which point you come from, which perspective you come from, you get to a point where the story starts to write itself. The story starts to write itself because the plot contains certain events. And our heroine or our hero in our story has a certain character. And so it becomes fairly predictable how our character will react to the events that we put in place. So quite often, she said to me, I'll be writing a story and then all of a sudden it will be as if I'm watching the story as I'm writing it. The story will be unfolding. Now, the story was her story. It came from her. It came from her creativity. Neither the plot nor the character existed before she created it. But once the story was in motion, certain elements had to appear based on the plot because once cause and effect. So in a way, astrology can be looked at that way. So now when we look at our chart again, we know the Saturn-Neptune conjunction is sitting here together. But there is always more happening. Every one of us has every 12 zodiac signs. We have every house, 1 to 12. We have every planet moving around our chart. We have asteroids moving around our chart, and we have many points in our chart that take place. So the plot, if you like, is always interweaved within a context. So that's always good to remember. So what are we going to do with this now? So we've talked already about how Saturn and Neptune interact. We've talked about how they move through the astrological wheel at different speeds. Saturn spending 2.5 years approximately in each house or sign. If you're using a whole sign house, 2.5 years. Neptune spending about 14 years in each. So, as we have spoken about, Saturn and Neptune have been traversing whatever house you have Pisces on the cusp of. So, as they were moving through this house, other planets that move faster than they do would have joined up with them. And here we see on the date of the perfected conjunction of Saturn and Neptune, we can see the moon here right beside them at 13 degrees 11 minutes. Now, the moon moves 1 degree every 2 hours. So she's moving through each sign in about 2.5 days. So she's moving very quickly, and she would have been moving through them repetitively whilst they were in Pisces. But the moon is very special because she acts like a bit of a trigger as well. So something on this state has also been reinforced or ticked off, or yes, now it's your time, by the moon. So let's have a look. So we have a very slow cycle for Neptune. 14 years Neptune's been in your Pisces house. If you were a rising Aquarius, then this would have taken place in your second house of money and resources. The last 2.5 years, you would have had Saturn in the same house as Neptune. Now, if you are a rising Aquarius, we'll stay with the rising Aquarius. It's now, they've moved into your third house of siblings, education at, say, primary school level. Your neighborhood is in your third house. Communication, journalism, as opposed to book publishing in the ninth house. Okay, so these are some of the plots, if you like, that are set up in your life at the moment. Now, what are you going to do with them? Well, that depends on your natal chart to locate some of your own character. Astrology is about knowing thyself. Transits are always happening. Your life is not static. You don't even look like you looked when you were 2 years old. You've grown quite a bit taller since then. You have changed, and you will continue to change. Now, now Saturn and Neptune are conjuncting for everyone on planet Earth. And this is happening at 0 degrees of Aries, which is a world point. So it's very significant for every single one of us. This is why it's quite a big deal. But this is not new to you. You have been going through these transits. And if you were born in 1989, this is an aspect in your actual natal chart as well. So we know the story of Saturn is about systems, about structuring. And we know the story of Neptune is about that celestial music, the endless oceans, the unformed, the dissolution, the illusions, the lies, if you like. And we looked at a couple of historical examples there, where we saw in 1917 the Creeley systemization, basically of propaganda. How do we systemize the telling of lies to manipulate the masses to actually want what we want? It's a little bit, and we see this in sales, don't we? How do we get our customers to actually want our product when they had never thought of it before? So there's all of these things playing out, and it's very much like a reframe, if you like. How do we reframe when we want to change? Everything is about patterns. Everything in our lives, the way that we behave, the way our character develops is through patterns. So events are presented to us, and we work out what those events mean to us based on who we are at any point. And that's where astrology becomes enormously helpful for us. It also allows us to detach enough that we can actually look at ourselves. So often we rely on other people to reflect back to us who we are. We can look in a mirror to see what we look like, sure. But sometimes how do we see what our character is in that mirror? And that is one of the real beauties and most helpful things about your astrology chart. So all of these things are happening at the moment, at this perfected conjunction. Now, Pisces, I will just show you, I will move ahead, days, hours. Now, maybe you're a rising Pisces on this day, 21st of February. Now, Saturn and Neptune are in your second house. They've just moved in there, but they've been in your first house. So, all the build up to this perfected conjunction for the last 14 years, you've had Neptune in your first house. For the last 2.5 years, you've had Saturn in your first house. The perfection is now happening in the second. Maybe you're a rising Aries. For the last 14 years, you've had Neptune here in your 12th house. You've had Saturn in your 12th house for the last 2.5 years. Your 12th house is very much about your subconscious. It is about the occult, things that are unseen. It may be hidden enemies. It may be that you have had a period in hospital. It may be that you have been in jail somewhere that is hidden. So some of the themes of astrology do not necessarily allow us to predict the actual plot that's going to happen, because you are part of that plot. You have a choice. You are every day you're confronted with certain choices, but the astrology, in terms of the plot, will always show the energies, and it will highlight what areas of your life are particularly poignant at any time. Now that's simplifying it still, because here we have Aries. They've just come out of, if you're an Aries rising, you've just come out as of in February, you will have just come out to perfect Saturn meeting Neptune at 0 degrees of Aries. You will have just come out of something to do with your 12th house. Perhaps you have been um, dabbling in some sort of hidden information, and that might be academic, that could be investigative, all of these sorts of things that resonate to that thing. Now, look what's going on here. You have Mercury. If this is you, Mercury is at 20 degrees of Pisces. So Mercury is now in there still helping with that linking of information from the 12th house to the first house. And you're birthing what you have been developing in that 12th house out to the first, if you're an Aries. Now, it can take on many actual manifestations, but it will manifest because Saturn is the manifestation. You will be developing a system or a pattern and saying, okay, now I get it. Now I see why I've had this journey for the last 14 years. And this is me now. This is my journey. This is where I will take this. And this is what this will provide all of the context and the fertile information for me that I am now ready to proceed. And Aries, remember, is very much an action-oriented sign. Aries is ruled by Mars, and Mars, therefore, it's basically Mars' house. So we're expecting that we're going to find ourselves in this very manly, in a way, whether you're a woman or a man, a very manly, masculine house. Aries is the masculine house. It's a house of action. Yes, it can be a house of war, absolutely. But, it's usually the honest soldier. It is the seed that is going to sprout. So there are a lot of wonderful positive things that you can do with this energy, but it will urge you to do it. And will you take up that gauntlet? There's plenty of help. There's no reason to be fearful, even though maybe you haven't visited Mars's house too often. So certainly if you're a rising Aries, you will be used to a lot of Martian themes in your character. Okay, hope that's helpful. Now let's move forward. So if you're a rising Taurus, then it's been playing out in your 11th house for the last 2.5 years, and now it's moving into your 12th house. So maybe you have been out there in the public sphere, and now you need time. You've brought it into your own, and maybe you're doing work on yourself now. Maybe this has been, right now I see this. Now I have time to consolidate things. It could be a time of consolidation for you. Okay. If you're a rising Gemini, it's whatever you have had it in your 10th house. So you have had a lot of this. Perhaps you have already been experiencing a lot of things around your career, and now you may be becoming more philanthropic, moving things out to the 11th social house of the 11th. Maybe you've worked and now some of your dreams have come true. Rising Cancer, you've been working here in the 9th house of Pisces, and now you have an opportunity to bring that out to the world. If you're a Leo rising, your Aries house is the 9th house. So you've been in the 8th house with everything that's going on. Perhaps there has been a lot of sadness. Perhaps you have lost loved ones, or perhaps you've had some financial issues around your partner has had financial issues. The chart shows the people in our lives as well. The people who are in our lives are shown in the chart. So it's not always you directly. It could be your partner who has gone through something here. Perhaps your partner's had some being close to serious illness, and now you have moved and you have got you've developed a spiritual perspective. The 9th house is about higher learning, spirituality, religion. All of these things, there are many, many different ways the plot can play out, but the energies will be the same and they will be indicative or indicated by the transits, especially these key ones that are affecting us all collectively and individually at this time. Okay, so if you're a rising Virgo, then you may have had the last 2.5 years regarding systemizing structures. Neptune, could be a love, and yet you're pulling your love into some sort of structure so that you are pooling your finances together. Throughout the 7th house, Neptune running through there for 14 years, you could have had rose-colored glasses about a lot of things and then totally deluded about some things and just enjoying the beautiful higher Venus octave that Neptune can bring to a wonderful partnership. But partnerships have to also manifest in the real world, and sometimes that real world is discussing your joint finances. So perhaps that's been your story. If you're a rising Libra, then you were working through the 6th house. Now, perhaps you were ill. Perhaps you've gone through a scare with your health over the last 2.5 years that has culminated. And now you have learned something that you can share with another, or maybe you opened a partnership with someone based on what's been happening in your 6th house. Now, the 6th house is interesting. It's also a house of pets. So pets, illness, some service. It is a house of service. It's a house of slave. It's referred to as a house of slavery as well. So illness, slavery, pets. I know sometimes you have to study a bit of astrology to comprehend some of the correspondences. But so 6th house. Okay. Now, if you're a rising Scorpio, then you would have had Neptune going through your 5th house. How wonderful for you if you're an artist to have your own muse or a musician having gone through your 5th house for 14 years. And now Saturn was able to structure that for you, and perhaps you bring it out in service to others. Is there, I know that people who work with art in consultations to help people, I mean, that could be one way this particular plot can play out. if your character is such that that's how you choose it to play out. So the energies remain the same. I hope that I'm giving you some information here that can draw you closer to what it feels like and how to enliven astrology in your own life so that you can feel a part of the context of your own life. Because that's when you know the terrain, you know yourself, you know the terrain, and then the sky's the limit basically. And since we are talking Aries and war, Sun Tzu in The Art of War said, if you know yourself and you know your adversary, you will win 100% of the time. If you only know your adversary and not yourself, or only know yourself and not your adversary, and if we think of adversary as the context of what our terrain is that we're moving in, rather than any individual adversary, then we start to realize the real value of astrology. And when we start highlighting this is where we are, as if we're going to a new country and we have no idea, there's an uncertainty. But once we start seeing signs of how things operate, how the system is set up, how some magical things and things we don't understand are all around us, and we want to bring them into a pattern. Okay. All right. So the next one. So if we're a rising Sagittarius, it's been playing out in our fourth house. Now, there may have been some unsettling times around your home life. Perhaps you feel like the ground has been moving under your feet. Your home can also be your country, your home, you know, and the resources in your country. Perhaps there have been issues around one or both of your parents who are also depicted in the fourth house. And now something is happening, you've gained that information and you are able to create something from it because the fifth house is in the house of creativity. So it has really birthed something. And perhaps, as we discussed, it could be that you've been pregnant, and you've gone through maybe a difficult pregnancy, but now things are forming. So well done, you. Okay. Capricorn. If you're a Capricorn, then it's been playing out in your third house of communication, neighbors. There may have been some activity around your neighbors that's been particularly maybe confusing or just interesting. And your communication, maybe if you're a teacher of primary school, things may have been happening at the school. All of these things. So the third house is siblings. Perhaps things have been happening to your siblings and this has affected you. And now that they're moving into the fourth house, things get worked out. Saturn will show the reality. Saturn can be used to, maybe there's been an intervention of a brother or sister and you've had to, they've been on, they've gone a little, off track in their own confusion. And now things are coming together. It doesn't have to be that. It can be as simple as maybe you're a journalist and you've been confused by what's going on, the role that you've played in the magical, whimsical lies that Neptune can weave. And now you realize and you've created a base from where you can now move on from. Saturn is about accountability and responsibility. If you're an Aquarius, then it's in your third house and it was in your second. And I think we started in Aquarius, didn't we? And did we do Capricorn? Yes, we did Capricorn. Okay, so I think that gives you an idea about what it looks like in your chart. Now, just to finish this particular video appendix, please consider all of the other planets. They are all sitting somewhere in your chart. So Mars, if you're a rising Capricorn, Mars that rules Aries is in your second house of resources and finances. So this house will be related to this house. Jupiter is currently, for all of us, exalted in Cancer. So jolly Jupiter, the greatest benefic, is actually offering some helpful agent to all of us, because Jupiter can do what Jupiter needs to do whilst Jupiter is in Cancer. And this year, and we'll be talking about Jupiter going into Leo later this year. The Saturn Neptune transit is massive for all of us when these planets end up on a world point, and especially a 0 degrees of Aries world point. Things are significant. You could almost suggest that the chart for February has been electionally worked out for certain events to happen. Now, what events in your life do you want to make happen? Because now is the time. In the build up to the actual conjunction, the energy gets stronger and stronger. So now is the time. It's not all going to happen miraculously on the 22nd of February. It's already happening and has been happening the last couple of years. This is not a new plot that's going to present itself to you. It's a culmination of the plot that has been playing out. Now, whether you're aware of that plot or not, when particular events may indeed happen on that day, those events are not just going to appear miraculously on one day. And now you have at least one key that perhaps you didn't have into your astrology chart before, and you can start feeling your way into Neptune that can offer you so much connection to the cosmos. If you just breathe into it, you have access to everything through Neptune, and Saturn will allow you to manifest that access. The plot will be playing out in whatever house that they have been traversing through up until now, and culminate in whatever house your Aries is on the cusp. If you need help, then I am here and you can book a session. If you have questions, Kate and I will be having a community question and answer session. So if you get your questions in, I will answer as many as I can. I hope that was helpful to you, because the whole point of astrology and psychology, hypnotherapy, is to be practically helpful to you. If it's not practically helpful to you, it's not what I do. Everything I will always try to offer you the techniques and the information that you can use. And I very much value your feedback. Thank you.